Hi everyone, it's Shannon here for Hero Arts. In today's video, we are going to make an easel card, which is a great style card for displaying. And we're going to add to this card a beautiful Japanese silkscreen inspired scene featuring the March My Monthly Hero kits. This is actually the premium March My Monthly Hero kit, but either the classic or the premium will work for today's card. I'm going to be using this gorgeous kind of scene building 6x8-inch stamp set, as well as the included frame cuts that match the images in that set. I'm going to first start with an A2 panel of Dove White cardstock, and we're going to make a halfway point or center line across our long side here. So to find that, I just need to find 2 3/4 and make a little mark on the left side, make a little mark, or find that measurement on the right, make a little mark as well, and then I'll use my T-ruler here just to connect those little marks. So now I have that center line for my panel. Now that we've marked our center line, we're going to grab this large scene or mountain scape die included in those frame cuts that I showed earlier. And I want to make sure that that bottom of that mountain ridge or mountain line doesn't go below our halfway line. So I just line it up here. I'll use a piece of tape to hold the die in place. And then I also use a piece of tape here on the right side just to kind of fan out that side, the sides of the die, so it doesn't cut or narrow my panel in any way. And now that I've ran it through my die cutting machine, I'll just remove the tape and we will be ready to start our stamping. I am going to first erase that pencil line, and then we'll grab our MISTI and start stamping our scene. So here's our stamp set here, and I'm going to start actually with the detail layer for the mountains. I found that was actually the easier way to start this set. So I picked that off of my acetate, placed it here into my MISTI, lined it up with the die cut, and now I'm going to ink it up with Deep Ocean. This is included in the kit, and I'm just going to simply ink up all the mountains or the whole entire stamp with that deep blue. And I'm going to do it twice here just to get it nice and bold and rich. And now we're going to move on to our next layer. So this is actually the base layer for the mountains. I'm going to position it, and then I'll pick it up with my MISTI. And now we're going to use a color that isn't included in the kit. It's just a very light blue. It is Mist. I will ink up the entire stamp with that Mist and then stamp my mountain scene. Now I'm going to leave that stamp in my MISTI here. I'm not going to move it at all because we are going to do a gradation over this stamp. When I was looking for inspiration for today's card, I noticed that Japanese silkscreens had a lot of beautiful gradations included in them. So we are doing our first one here, one of many in today's card or today's scene. So I have the same stamp. I'm just going to ink up that upper third or upper half in Periwinkle, which is an ink included in the kits. Then I will grab a blending brush and just soften the bottom edge of the ink or the ink line. That'll soften it so you don't have any harsh lines. And then I will stamp it, and that will make a beautiful gradation over that mountain range. I'm just going to hold up here the camera so you can get a better look, but it adds some darker tones there, and it's just so pretty. Very subtle, but definitely adds a richness to the scene. Now I've grabbed the water stamp for our landscape, positioned it, and then picked it up with my MISTI. I'm going to ink up the entire water with Periwinkle, again included in the kit, and then I will also create a gradation for over this stamp set or this stamp as well. I'm going to grab that Deep Ocean included in the kit and then ink up the bottom half of our water with that dark deep blue. Then I'll use my blending brush to soften the edge of the ink so there is no like harsh ink pad lines, and then stamp. I'll do this a couple of times to increase the intensity of that Deep Ocean, and once I get that nice and dark as I want, so plenty of contrast, you can see here we have this beautiful ombre over the water as well. Now that we've finished stamping some gradations in our scene, we're now going to ink blend some as well. I'm going to start with Mist here, that really light blue I used earlier, and I'm going to ink blend a little bit over these mountains. I'm actually going to start kind of at the top and ink blend down, and what this does is it almost kind of creates the look of mist kind of hovering around the mountains, and it also just adds a little bit more depth to our scene as well. Just a tiny little bit of that mist ink blended there really kind of gets rid of that harsh starkness of the white as well. Now we're going to move on to ink blending our water. I'm going to start with periwinkle here, and I'm going to ink blend starting at the bottom of our panel and up into the water. I'm going to stop just at the line of the water, the edge of the water. I do want to keep that nice stark white right there along that water's edge. It just kind of really adds more interest to our scene. After I ink blended with periwinkle, I'm now going to move on to deep ocean and start to create that gradation, start to build that gradation where it's darker at the bottom of our scene and gets a little bit lighter. Now we do have that stamped water, so you can't really see the gradation as well. So I decided I needed to kind of amp it up a little bit. So I did grab nautical and just ink blend the very bottom of our water just to kind of darken it up a bit. And now that we've finished ink blending our gradations, we're going to stamp some additional elements to our scene. We're going to stamp the gate there and a boat. I've just positioned them, the stamps, over my scene, picked them up with my Misty, and then we're going to now ink them up in pitch black ink and stamp them. Now I have one more thing I want to stamp on this panel, and that is the reflection of the sun over the water. So I picked up that stamp, positioned it here in my Misty, and now I'm going to stamp it in red. I'm going to use this cherry ink that's also included in the kits, and then just ink it up and stamp it over our water. I'll stamp it a couple of times just to kind of build the intensity of that red color. And after I stamp that, we are completely done with this panel, or this part of our scene here. We do have our background that we have to create, but our foreground is now done. So now I have basically the base for an A2 top folding card base, and I'm going to first score it just like you normally would at 5.5. So just score it in half. So we have our card base. Now here's where we're going to go a little different. I've turned it kind of almost from the inside, and I'm going to score at 2 3/4, which is the middle or halfway point of that front panel, and then I will fold it doing a mountain fold here, and you can see how this is going to become the front of our card. We will actually add this to a second A2 top folding card base later. Now that we have our front of our card kind of folded and ready to go, we're going to start with some ink blending for our background. So I'm going to ink blend the top here of this panel, or top of this cardstock, with cotton candy ink. And then once I finish that, we'll move on to pink grapefruit. Pink grapefruit is kind of like a orangey or peachy color. I'm going to ink blend just below the cotton candy, kind of up into the cotton candy a little bit to create this really pretty gradation between these two kind of orange and pink colors. Now that we finished that ink blend or gradation, we're going to stamp this sun here. So I've grabbed the stamp, going to position it using that scene that we created earlier, just going to help me figure out where I want that sun to go. Have of course my panel here in the Misty, and then picked up my sun. We're going to ink this up first in cherry, so that red that was included in the kit, and then just stamp it. And after we've stamped it in the cherry, we're going to grab some cranberry, which is just a darker red, and just partially ink up the bottom of our sun with that darker red. You can see I'm kind of holding my ink pad at an angle, so only about half of the sun is coming in contact with that cranberry, and then I'll stamp it. And what that does is just create, again, a little gradation over our sun and really makes it look more rounded. Now we're going to finish up by stamping our sentiment here. I love the sentiments on this stamp set. I love the scripty look of them. I love what they say. This is a great sentiment set. There's great sentiments included in this set. So I picked Enjoy the Journey, so this could be kind of like a birthday card even, or maybe even a retirement card. Stamped it in pitch black kind of over my sun, and now we're ready to kind of put this card together. And the first thing we're going to do is actually trim the top off about just 1/8 of an inch off of the top. This is just going to help this card sit up a little bit more upright when it's on display, because again, we're creating an easel card. So I just trimmed a little bit off the top, just about 1/8 of an inch. And now we're going to start putting things together. So the first thing I'm going to do is adhere our mountain scene to that front flap of this easel card here. I'm just going to use some liquid glue and adhere it down. Once I get my liquid adhesive down on that flap, I'll then take our mountain scene and line up the bottom edge of our mountain scene with the bottom edge of that flap. And because we were careful to make sure we didn't, when we die cut, that we didn't go below 2 3/4, that flap is completely covered by our mountain scene. Now we're going to move on to adhering the front of our easel card onto a A2 top folding white card base. I'm going to add liquid glue to the front of this card base, but avoid adding liquid glue at the bottom 1/8, because if you'll remember, we did trim down that back part of our front of the easel card. We did trim it down a little bit. And when I adhere it on, because we trimmed it down, we have a little gap of cardstock there at the bottom in our middle section now of our card. So now I'm going to take my scissors and just hand cut that out. And the whole reason why we did any of this, again, is just so it stands a little bit more upright when the card is being displayed. It kind of removes a little bit of the center, and that allows the front and back sides of the card to stand a little bit more upright. And you can see here how nicely this card stands up. Of course, you could actually totally not do that, not trim the top of the card base or the center, but it does help it stand right. So here's the finished card. I love how the scene turned out. It has so much depth and detail. I also love the contrast that we're getting from that rich kind of orange and pink red kind of tones in our ombre background, our sky. And of course, this is an easel card, which is such a cool kind of easy interactive card and perfect for a scene. I hope you guys enjoyed today's card and video. If you have any questions about the products I use, please check out the links below in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.